I've always been someone who avoids conflict. I think a lot of people feel that way, especially when they're younger. You want to keep the peace, avoid rocking the boat, and make sure everyone is happy with you. But for me, this desire to keep things smooth and simple became a huge part of my life. I remember thinking that as long as I didn't speak up, as long as I didn't make waves, I would be safe from criticism, rejection, or judgment. I convinced myself that silence was the best way to handle things, even when deep down I knew it wasn't. I thought if I stayed quiet, I wouldn't have to deal with the uncomfortable feelings that come from confrontation. And for a long time, I allowed myself to believe that was true. But life has a funny way of making you face your fears, whether you're ready or not. It happened to me one summer, during my final year of college, when I learned the hard way that staying silent isn't always the best choice. It's funny how you don't always realize what you're afraid of until you're forced to confront it head on. That summer, I was working as an intern at a marketing firm. It wasn't the kind of glamorous job I had imagined, but I was grateful for the opportunity. I was excited about learning the ropes of the industry, and I tried to show up every day with enthusiasm and eagerness. But as the weeks went by, I realized that something wasn't right. My supervisor, Jennifer, was a smart and talented woman. I admired her work ethic and her ability to juggle a million things at once. But there was a side to her that I didn't expect. Jennifer was harsh, demanding, and often left me feeling like I wasn't doing enough. It wasn't just the long hours or the heavy workload, it was the way she spoke to me. She'd make snide comments about my work, point out every little mistake, and rarely offered any positive feedback. At first, I thought maybe I was just being too sensitive. After all, this was a real-world job, not school. It was normal to be under pressure, right? But as the weeks dragged on, the comments became more frequent and the tension started to build up inside me. I remember one particular meeting. We were sitting in a conference room with a few other interns and team members. Jennifer was leading the meeting, and I had just finished presenting my progress on a project. I was nervous, as usual, but I thought I had done well. When I finished, Jennifer looked at me with a cold expression and said, "That's it? Is this the best you can do?" Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I had put in a lot of work, that I had done my best. But I didn't. I just nodded and muttered something about making improvements. I told myself that maybe I could do better next time, but as the meeting went on, I felt like I was shrinking. I felt invisible. I felt like I didn't matter. I wanted to speak up, to tell Jennifer how her comments were affecting me, but I couldn't find the words. I was afraid of her reaction, afraid of making things worse. So I stayed silent. I sat there, nodding along, pretending that everything was fine, even though inside I was falling apart. That was the moment I began to regret my silence. I realized that by not speaking up, by not standing up for myself, I was letting Jennifer treat me however she wanted. I had given her the power to make me feel small, and I was too afraid to take it back. But the fear of confrontation held me back. The fear of being seen as difficult or ungrateful. The fear of losing my job and ruining my future prospects. So I kept quiet. I thought maybe if I just worked harder, maybe if I just proved myself, she would stop being so harsh. But the truth was, the longer I stayed silent, the worse it became. Days turned into weeks, and the tension only grew. Jennifer's comments became more cutting, and I felt more and more like I was failing. I began to dread going into work every morning. My stomach would twist in knots as I thought about the day ahead. I hated how I felt. Powerless, voiceless, and invisible. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was giving up parts of who I was just to survive in this job. And the worst part was that I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I didn't want to seem like I was complaining, and I didn't want to burden my friends or family with my problems. I kept everything bottled up, afraid to admit how much I was struggling. It wasn't just the harsh comments that got to me. It was the fact that I couldn't stand up for myself. I had always prided myself on being confident and assertive, but now I felt like a shadow of myself. I had let fear take control. I had let my fear of confrontation and rejection override my need to be treated with respect. And the longer I stayed silent, the harder it became to speak up. Then, one day, something changed. It happened during a meeting where Jennifer had really crossed the line. We were discussing a new project, and I had been tasked with doing some research for the presentation. I had worked late into the night to get everything right, and I was feeling confident about my findings. But when I presented them, Jennifer didn't even look at my notes. She just stared at me, then looked at the rest of the team and said, "Is this seriously the best we can do? This is a waste of time." Her words stung more than anything she had said before. This time, I couldn't take it anymore. My heart was racing, my hands were shaking, but I knew I couldn't keep silent. I took a deep breath, gathered all the courage I had, and said, "Jennifer, I've been working really hard on this. I've put in a lot of time and effort, and I think the work I've done is valuable." I could feel my voice trembling, but I didn't back down. "I understand if there are things that need to be improved, but I would appreciate it if you could provide more constructive feedback instead of just criticizing everything I do." The room fell silent. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I was terrified of what would happen next. Jennifer didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, her face expressionless. For a moment, I thought I had made a huge mistake. I thought she would fire me or explode with anger. But then, slowly, she nodded. "You're right," she said quietly. "I haven't been giving you the feedback you need. I apologize for that." The rest of the meeting went by in a blur. I don't even remember what was discussed after that. All I could think about was the fact that I had actually spoken up. I had stood up for myself, and nothing terrible had happened. I wasn't fired. I wasn't yelled at. In fact, I felt a sense of relief wash over me that I hadn't felt in weeks. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my own life again. After that day, things started to change. Jennifer's behavior improved, and she began to offer more constructive criticism rather than just pointing out flaws. I felt more confident in my work, and I didn't dread going to the office anymore. I realized that the fear I had been carrying for so long had been unfounded. By speaking up, I had opened the door to a more positive and respectful relationship with my supervisor. And I had learned something valuable, that I didn't have to stay silent to keep the peace. I could speak up for myself without fear of the consequences. The experience taught me an important lesson about the power of speaking up. It's not always easy, and it's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. When we keep quiet out of fear, we allow others to take control of our lives. But when we find the courage to speak our truth, we not only take back control of our own lives, we also create space for others to do the same. And that's what I learned that summer. It wasn't just about standing up for myself in the workplace. It was about finding my voice in all aspects of my life. It was about realizing that I deserved to be heard and that my thoughts, opinions, and feelings mattered. Looking back, I realized that the fear I felt was always going to be there. Fear is a natural part of being human, but I also realized that fear doesn't have to control me. I don't have to let it keep me silent. I can face it, speak up, and trust that the world won't fall apart just because I assert myself. In fact, it's only when we find our voice that we truly begin to live authentically. And that's a lesson I will carry with me for the rest of my life.